to this press briefing. My name is Puli Diba. I am the Charge d'Affaires at the Gambia High Commission in Sierra Leone. So most of you understand that Gambia High Commission in Sierra Leone is overseeing both Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire. It is an opportunity for me to be here today with a special guest that we brought, a youth from Monrovia. I want to take this opportunity to introduce Ms. Stefan Audrey. She is a global ambassador for youth empowerment and also for climate change. She's involved in a lot of activities and a lot of work in Liberia. And not only in Liberia, but also beyond, in other parts of Africa. On my right, I have our honorary counselor, Mr. Ismaila Cisse. Mr. Ismaila Cisse is the honorary counselor in Liberia for the Gambia. And of course, the executive director, Mr. Alaji Jaju, is here with us. And also, we are part of our delegation is another gentleman. He is a partner of Ms. Stefan Audrey. Ms. Stefan heard about Gambia, and since what she does has a lot to do with youth work and youth empowerment, I thought it was befitting during our visit to make sure that we introduce her to the National Youth Council. This will open up the communication link between her and what she does with the young people of this country. She's very passionate about what she does and also promoting and protecting the interests of the young folks when it comes to empowering the youth and also protecting our environment. So I want to give the opportunity to Ms. Audrey to have a word with you, and also that will be followed by short questions and answers. If you have some questions that you may want to ask, you are free to do so. And I thank all of you for your time and for answering to our call. We are always proud of the press, both the print and the electronic media in Gambia here. You are doing a fantastic job, and you are supporting our national development agenda. I think I want to say thank you and keep up the excellent job you are doing to give Gambia the exposure that it needs. It's a small country, but with your help and with your dedication to our national development agenda, Gambia, the sky is the limit for us. And I want to thank our young men and women for your hard work and for always being there when we needed you most. Thank you. Ms. Audrey.
For opening up the corridors for me to have this opportunity to come to Gambia and speak to key stakeholders in the youth of Gambia. And I must commend you all for being here today. It is an honorable pleasure to be here as well. And Mr. Minister, CEO, yeah.
Executive Director.
Okay, Mr. Executive Director, also I want to thank you for having me, and thank you so much for setting this up. I'm honored. So, as you all have been told, I am Ms. Stephanie Audrey Poto. I don't like to use the ambassador because I believe we're all young people. But I'm actually a global ambassador for youth empowerment and climate change. And I've been working close to governments and youth empowerment related projects with the UN, local government, and private institutions since I was 11. And at 12, 13, I started working with the foreign ministry. And I also worked with one of Africa's first female president, Madam Sirleaf, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. I guess some of you have heard about her. And I was mentored by her and some people close to her as well. And I'm currently building a mini city in my country, Liberia, because I went to school abroad and I learned and decided to come back and contribute my quota to my country. So doing a mega city where we would have medical institution, modern homes, art studios, hotels, and just everything a city should have. And I signed this contract so that I could be able to do this project throughout Liberia as a way of contributing to infrastructure development. And also I'm building the first historic arts academy in Liberia. to help to contribute to economic empowerment, because we all see what happens on TV with the Americans, and you could earn more and contribute to economic development through arts and entertainment, because people don't only learn from what is seen on TV, but people are able to gain resources to be able to support their family, and on the multiplier effect goes. And it is also my vision to work with other African countries. So as Youth Empowerment Ambassador and Global Ambassador for Climate, and also as a businesswoman, I'm visiting governments and key stakeholders in Africa, including presidents, so that I could be able to discuss with them matters of mutual interest and mutual benefits, so that we see what we could do for our continent, how I could work with them. Because I believe we are the young generation especially. It takes us to step to the plate and create the Africa we want to see. Because growing up, I've been there, I know how it feels. If you don't add value to yourself and sit on the table and make other people around the table to understand that you deserve a seat at that table, trust me, it's not going to work out. So I'm doing a lot of projects, and I'm very glad to, be obliged to come to Gambia. I've seen the country, I've met other stakeholders before coming here, and I love the country. And I'm looking forward to working with you all. I'm looking forward to seeing what are the opportunities open, and how I could work and support some of these projects, whether on the business front or relating to youth empowerment and other things, because some of the other projects I do are the likes of agricultural projects, women empowerment in terms of micro loan and so forth. And even currently, now that we're going towards elections in Liberia, there's a project I'm working with ECOWAS and the Women's Situation Room, where we're doing civic and photos education, and we're empowering the youths, so that they could take ownership of their future, So, and even asking them questions like, why do you vote for this candidate, because they should know. And, empowering them so that they grow above the one bag of rice and the small money politicians will give them to cause violence or, cause chaos, because it is our future. We cannot continue taking the perks. So what are the opportunities that we could create? Because I believe if you're empowered and I'm empowered, there can be no politician or any other common man that will come and tell you, do this to go against your future. It is actually the poverty that causes some of these things. So those are the things I'm planning on working to minimize. So, and I cannot do it alone. So I have to visit the continent and see like-minded leaders that I could work with, and stakeholders, and even youths like you. So this is as far as I could say. There are lots that I'm doing, but I will now open the floor for questions as we move forward. Thank you. I'm only partner with governments in Liberia and other countries, where we liaise with the Chinese government, the government of the UK, and other, including the American government. And we find scholarships in specific areas, like, for example, engineering, because, of course, we have to build our own countries, because if we don't train or boost the human capital level where our own people can come and build, the money will still go out of the country. Then you will not empower the young people, because you will have to call the Indians or the French or the Americans or the Turkish to come and build, and then they take the money out of the country, when we could just empower some young people interested in engineering, and then they be able to build and beautify their own country. The likes with agriculture and technology. So you all too have to be willing, because there's a role for all of us to play. So if we work with the Ministry of Youth to open up these corridors, you have a role, because the young people nowadays, especially for Liberia, I always give case studies. The young people don't want to go on the farm. They're like, no, I can't get my hands dirty. We should do things that, are a bit more fancy. And also even the arts and entertainment industry, So it's all about creating awareness on the importance of these areas too. That's something I would recommend. So you would come up with the opportunities that are there. You would create the awareness, why, something that would convince the youth that, okay, these are the right areas, and something that will be able to pair them with the right areas, because we all can do the same thing. Some may be interested in the agriculture, and some might be interested, but they don't know actually that they were interested. And from just your awareness, it will make them to understand. Because even me, I'm very diverse when it comes to things I know and things I have interest in. For me, I didn't even know, what it took to plant rice or soy. But when I started doing some UN projects, and I saw the importance of agriculture. I will tell you, I know how to plant some cassava. I can tell you a lot about it. It's beautiful when we make things our passion, but then again, we have to be motivated to do those things. So coming up with a list, creating clues about what they can do, and also working to, give them the understanding that these things, are important, and we need to take up these roles so that we can be able to cover the loopholes. So I believe that's the first way to go, the first three, and then before we start the implementation, because it takes the youth, and it takes us who would bring the funding in. Because if we go and do everything and the youth are not going to work, it all falls back on us again. So that's what I feel. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. I think I wanted to send throw in some words regarding that. This is one of the areas where the embassies are expected to play an important role. We are not just there representing our countries. What we are trying to do globally now, and especially in Africa, is there's no country that is that is not having the same problem. You go to Senegal, Gambia, Bissau, you can name all West African countries, and even beyond. So what can we do as embassies? This is where we also start looking around when we hear about people like herself, and we profile them, we find out what they do, and how can what they do can be related to the Gambia. Youth unemployment is not just about people not getting jobs in the government. There are a lot of jobs in the informal sectors.
Right.
People want to do private gardening, private farming, and you see the impact of climate change is discouraging a lot of people. So what people like her does, when they come to our countries, they want to look at some of the project proposals that we have. If that project has anything to do with climate change, then she becomes your ambassador. She can go out there and represent you, solicit funding on your behalf. Well, Gambian youth, this is the unemployment rate. But surprisingly, when I went to Gambia, I found out that the youth, this is what they want, and I think this is climate related. So if we help the young people funding in this aspect, that will reduce the unemployment rate. The same thing also can come under youth empowerment.
Right.
We have so many able bodies in this country. What can we do? But again, we have to sit down ourselves as young people of this country, the cream of the society. We decide what we want to do. We have to diversify.
Right.
Not everybody should graduate and go and sit in an office. So this is where, when somebody is identified as a UN global ambassador for climate change and for youth empowerment, they go out there and dialogue with the young people, find out what are some of the issues, what are the things that they are talking about, what would they really want. But she cannot tell us what we want in Gambia.
Exactly.
Yes, she understands Liberia. This is why she's building a smart city in Liberia. She's involved in education work. She's involved in health-related work. She's involved in agriculture-related work. She's bringing other projects in Liberia, and she wants to replicate similar projects here. So this is why we invited her, and she has the idea, or she is also exposed. She's well connected. She can have access to people and places where you and I would not have access to. So that's why we want to use her as also our ambassador, not only a global ambassador for Liberia, but global ambassador for youth empowerment and for climate change for the whole of Africa. If you look at our tourism industry, it's seriously affected by the global warming, climate change, what's happening here. Agriculture, all our sectors are affected. The education sector, how many of our young people are leaving school, going back way? If at all they are employed here, they will not go. All those are climate related. So she can make a good argument on our behalf. If we do A, B, and C for the Gambian youth, I think this will reduce migration. I think this will contribute to the health of the people. And there are other sectors also in health and other things. So this is why I thought when we were coming, I said the first, we cannot go to Gambia without meeting the National Youth Council, because this will be the communication channel between your work and the young people of the Gambia. So, and the foreign policy now, the way we are doing diplomacy and now is different. Now we want to focus more on economic diplomacy. That is, every embassy start asking, what can I bring to my country? Because this is what the Chinese are doing very well. The Chinese are creating so many millionaires, not because of what is happening in China. When they come to your country, you give them projects, they hire Chinese people. By the time that project ends, they go back, they all become millionaires.
Right.
So this is what we also want to start doing now. We want to see any single opportunity that we come across, the first thing we think about, how can this project, or how can this idea, or how can this program be replicated in the Gambia? And this is why we thought it was necessary for her to come to Gambia here, meet with the First Lady, meet with some other key ministers, to see how we can put our heads together so that she can also represent Gambia where Gambia is not represented and where other African countries are also not represented. Because she's very good at what she does. We just don't bring people here because they want to come. Now, we've gone, those days are over. Before we bring you and introduce you to our leaders, we make sure that we are convinced about the work you do, and also that we must be convinced that you can contribute to the youth the empowerment in this country here, to our national development goals. We have our national development agenda. Anything that somebody wants to bring, if it doesn't fall within that framework, we say, no, I'm sorry, this is not our national priority area now. What is our national priority area is where we show interest and demonstrate interest. But she is very, very ready and willing to expand what she does in Gambia. Not only just this ambassador work, but also, like she said, as a businesswoman. Thank you.
Alhaji? Yeah. Thank you so
Because as you said, and as Mr. Commissioner said, we face the price and we are paying the price. Of course, we don't create the plastics, but of course, they fund themselves in Africa. I don't want to say much with regards to the West. And we're paying heavily because we are not able to maybe work with a system to be able to contain these things. So it all goes back to policies again. That's why, as it relates to climate change and the mediation that comes with it, you cannot leave the government out and the key stakeholders. This is why I'm trying to do for my project in Liberia to even get the justice system in place. I mean to act or to play a specific role in that area. Because, for example, you have the EPA, and let me just tell you one thing about the first project I'm about to do, aside from just going to schools and creating beautification projects for young people. Well, of course, we need a tree, because some people don't even know that the trees you cut today to make the charcoal and stuff, they hold the ground, and of course, when the storm comes, it is that big tree that holds even your roof, but you're cutting all the trees down when you have no business cutting them, because of course some trees needs to be cut down, but the ones you cut down that don't need to be cut down, and then you go look, your roof is lifting up when there's storms, and you're wondering what's happening. So I believe we have to put policies in place and systems and strong mandates. This one has to do with the government, because Africa as a people, we have this mentality where we don't move until we are compelled to. Sometimes, I'm sorry to say, but that's the fact. It happens a lot with Liberia. For example, why would you or him or somebody, because it happens a lot, I'm saying it, go to the United States of America and you eat some peanuts and the plastic, you keep it in your car. Of course, because there are cameras all in the streets to watch you. And if you throw it in the street, which plastic, if it's not decomposed correctly, it causes a lot of issues, and that it affects the climate change, the entire protective climate environment, and it causes the climate hazard. And you throw it in the street, and you know very well that if you throw it in the street in the United States of America, they won't even run behind you. The next morning, you will see the police at your door because they, document everybody. It is because of this system that people will not do that. But once we come to Africa, we could throw everything down to the windows because, of course, the police and other people cannot track us. So what are the systems that we could put in place? But to be honest, as an ambassador of climate change, is a very hard thing because, in the systems in Africa, it's very hard to implement them when you don't have the backends. Because for me, I'm advisor to the Senate. The Senate makes policies in Liberia. And, I get to tell them, for example, if we're doing gold or diamonds, and this company is causing pollution or hazards by taking the gold and messing and polluting the water where the fish, because, animals are very important in the area of climate change. Their lives matter. Though there are some animals that you eat, like the fish and other things. But, you rid them of their life, when it comes to the UN codes, by poisoning the water, and all those animals in the water, they die and so forth, and they poison us, And now even sometimes if the chemicals go through them and you catch the fish and eat it, you die, you yourself. So it causes a lot of hazards. But then the government, this one, I'm a climate ambassador. I could only recommend to the government, tell this company to do this or put this regulation in place where we would get people to show them how to do it. And they would even pay taxes that could regulate these things that would bring back economic benefits to the country. But will the country be willing to let this happen? So for this, I would say in terms of mediation, there are a lot of things that we could recommend. But for us as ambassadors, even the UN, you can only do what you can. It rests solely and fully on the arms of the leaders to be able to implement real climate active projects and proposals. Because even you and myself, we don't have the policies in our hands. And of course the UN or even myself, we cannot force the hands of the government. Do they want these systems? If they want the system, those are things we can do. But I can say again to you, as young people, you know that if you throw the plastics in the street, it's wrong. You know that if you have a young daughter and you keep putting the candy on the table and she takes it, you don't talk, she will start taking other things. But if you discipline her, she will know that if you leave this here, it will stay there. That's the training. So you could train yourself and train other people and create awarenesses so that we know that if we do this, it pollutes our climate and it kills ourselves because we have a short lifespan, if we let these things affect us. Even the environment, if you pollute the environment, people don't know you're, inhaling all of the toxic atmospheric smells and all of those things. It costs your life short, so it takes you to keep it clean. You cannot depend solely and fully on the mayors to come and clean your house. Like for Liberia, that's why we always say some people will want the cleaners of the city to come and clean their house. So we have our responsibilities too. Where the policies cannot reach, I think we should take the stand and be ambassadors ourselves by cleaning our homes and by telling other people it's wrong to do this, it's wrong to eat and throw the dirt in the street, it's wrong to do this and that with the plastic. And there's a way around it. Even the plastic, people don't know. You can turn waste into wealth. If you decompose these plastics, they turn to oil. Because that's the oil that the West take. Okay, I don't want to go too much into that, but that's the oil that the West take, and then they make these things. If you decompose them, they become oil for cooking gas and other things. How do you turn them into tangibles? Those are ways to, create things that you could benefit from in your community. And that's something I'm trying to even do in Liberia. They have the machines that you buy, and you build a hub where you can now pay and empower the youths and say, okay, if 5,000 youths bring me maybe a total of 10,000 plastics every week. You get paid for that, and you're promoted, you're trained, and then now you make cooking gas for the community. We can now cook, then we won't have to use the coal. So these are other innovative ways that we can mediate and reduce the climate impact, aside from that, which is in direct relations to policy making. So being innovative is one way, and also being a messenger of your own or an evangelist when it comes to keeping your environment clean. Because once we have a green earth, we would have a longer lifespan to do all the great things we want to do for our continent. Thank you. I hope it answers your question. Yeah.
All right. Take one.
Yeah.
Somebody.
Well, I'm meeting different spectrums of youth. I just met some in entertainment, and I'm here with you all. Because like I said, I have spent one day in the country, and that's why you're here. You could tell me from your perspective what you think. The entertainers have spoken, and of course, we have something to move on from. So I would like to hear from you all more so that we can be able to work. But for me, like I said previously, I'm ready once Gambia is ready. It is time now for you to put your cards on the table, and then we take it forward, because I would rather do more than talking much.
I think I can help you, madam, to understand this better. I think what she can, like I told you before, Gambia and Liberia have a very good history.
Right.
That's why it was not a surprise during your difficult times. A lot of Liberians choose Gambia as a second home. They came here, and some decided to stay. So welcome home. And,
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for the visit.
Thank you.
And I want to thank the young people again for your time and for
Thank you.
the good work you are doing. Keep it up.
Right.